session right now is on milestones. And we've talked about milestones, especially that first group. And that first group, I want to recognize you again. Would you please stand up? Our cohort one. Right. It was alluded to before, but I wanted to make sure that we recognize this group because the reality is that when we received permission to start, the first cohort was started right away. And as with any new program, there were some bumps and bruises. They were our, you can call them guinea pigs, or you can call them pioneers, whichever one sounds better to you. But the reality is that this group has been instrumental in coming back to me as the director, to coming back to Dr. Schatzberger as one of the first, or the first instructor who has our groups in the ethics course. And honestly and truly, we have listened to feedback. I think that you've had to change some things up programmatically and in some of the first courses as we've been going through them so that it's better for you. So if you still saw some bumps and bruises and things that needed to be changed, it was probably worse before. And they helped us fix it to that point. And with anything that you want to continue to improve, you have to be open to feedback. And so hopefully you've seen that in the program, that we are listening, we are changing things up, and we continue to do so. So one of the things that I want to say is please don't feel badly about coming to me as program coordinator and saying, look, I have an idea, I have a thought, I have a question, I have a concern. You're not being judged. We're grateful that you do that, how you feel that you can do that. And so we want you to continue doing that. And again, just that first cohort, we need to recognize that they've been instrumental in taking this initial first try and helping to massage that to make it better. So thank you very much for doing that. So some of you have probably heard about the milestones. I know the first cohort, we've had some discussions about the milestones. But what I want to do today is just provide a session for you to just lay everything out. And even though we've gone through things, as you go through your program, it tends to make sense in a different way. Because now you're ready for that. Now you're ready to hear that, or you want to know what comes after that. And so for those of you who just started in January, some of this might just be, oh my gosh, where do I have to go from here? But for some of you who started last May, you may be at a point where you're like, hey, when do I get to put my committee together? And when do I get to start working on the actual dissertation proposal? I'm going to tell you up front that you're already doing that in some way, shape, or form. The way that our program is designed is that all of the milestones are embedded into the program, okay? And that's a little bit different than other programs, okay? But the idea is that everything is relevant, everything is foundational and builds, whether it's a skill or something that you're actually doing that content specific, okay? So for example, I've had this conversation with my cohort. This particular class for summer residency 1 is focused on academic writing, and it was purposeful in that it does not focus on a dissertation topic that you would most likely get. And it was purposeful in that way because we wanted to work on the process with you. Because if you think about, I mean, take a step back and think about you as an educator. You do practice tests with the kids so that they can learn the format, because the format's so important when they get to the high stakes test, right? So you practice with these practice tests. When you did your MAT or GRE, you did practice tests so that you could do better on the actual exam, right? Well, it's kind of the same idea. We want to make sure that you are getting practice in your writing but also practice in the format of what a dissertation would look like, so that when you do get to that dissertation writing process, it's going to be something that you're not going to have to expend your energy on the format of it or on the APA of it, but you can actually focus on the content and your research. Okay? So our milestones are embedded. Now, I wanted to show you a couple of things just from, you want to turn the lights up? There's only one light switch in this room. So lights are either on or off. So is this okay for everyone? Better? Okay. So I wanted to start out with something that we, you met Dr. White Pugh earlier, the provost. She and I have been working on this for months, and it just went live. I have to remember, don't I? She and I have been working on this for months, and it just went live a couple weeks ago, and I did share it with the first cohort just so that they could kind of take an initial peek at it. But we're rolling. This is awesome. You have this, and feel free, if you have your computer, to look at this as I walk you through. But under students and under that student's resources, you have what will hopefully be really, really important information available to you at the click of a button. So this is your EDD portal. Okay? If you notice, under EDD resources here, I have the orientation that you went through when you first came into the program. So if you ever have any questions about what you need to do or remember or something about attendance or anything like that, you can go there. There's also an EDD handbook available. Okay? And that talks to you about the program, but it doesn't go into the dissertation process because I have a whole other handbook that lines that up for you, including a template for your dissertation. And that's available up here too now. Okay? The Dissertation Committee member profiles are up here for you. That's what you're going to be doing after Dr. Schatzberger talks with you a little bit later this afternoon. You'll have time to go into those profiles if you haven't had time already. And every profile is somebody who has their doctorate. They have been interviewed. They have been credentialed. And they have been approved in certain areas to perform certain tasks. You have how many committee members? 3. So you have your chair, your methodologist, and your reader. And I'll talk to you a little bit about what each one does, but that's available to you. Your itinerary is up here, so if you ever want to know what we're doing on what day, it's up here for you. And then everything, every session that you'll have this week has a PowerPoint or the handouts up here for you. In addition, as Reverend Williams gets things from Zoom, we will be putting the recordings up here as well. So if you ever want to go back and look, you can go back and you can take a peek and try to remember what was said during that session. Okay? And by sessions, I mean something like this, not like introductions or the ice cream social or anything like that. Okay? But the actual sessions will all be recorded and uploaded for you. Okay? Now, as we scroll down, there's a lot there because of the summer residency right now. It's still under construction. We're still building it. But there's a whole library section, and this will also include your ProFest information, essentially. Okay? You also have your APA cheat sheet. Now, Smart Thinking is a tool that's available to you, and I don't know if many people know about it or use it, but actually you can have somebody take a look at a paper, the mechanics of it, prior to submitting it to your instructor. So that Smart Thinking is how you would do that. The university has paid for the service, and it's just a matter of you logging in, setting up your login information and utilizing that service. So if writing tends to be a little bit of an issue for you, then this would be a great resource for you to take a look at. You notice too Dr. Strickland's email right there. And so she met her this morning as well. And she's now in charge of the student services. So reach out to her as well and see if there's other things if you feel that writing might be something that can be assistance with. Then, if we keep going, here's your comp assessment information. And there's a rubric there for you, just so that you can see what kinds of things you're going to need to make sure that you do for your comp assessment. Now remember that you're going to be working with your dissertation committee with your comp assessment as well. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then forms and surveys. So creating your dissertation committee. When we go through IRB and things are settled throughout the university, because we're still going through the channels part of IRB, moving from an RCC to an IRB. When that's all settled, that'll be up here. Intent to graduate. That one is up here. It's ready for you. And your transcript request, because you'll be able to go up on the pay scale, and so you do that for transcript, from my understanding. So just things that you'll need throughout here. There's statistical and research resources over here, and then dissertation guidelines. And this is something that you're going to want to become familiar with, what you need to do for your proposal defense and your final defense, and the template is there, your manual is there, it walks you through. Okay, when you're ready to take a look at that. And finally, this area here is actually for your dissertation committee members, so you don't need to use this section. And again, IRB, when that's ready, that'll be up there. So again, if there's anything that you don't see up there that would be helpful, just throw me an email, okay? And then we'll go from there. Perfect. Thank you. You're working on the maintenance issue. All right. So any questions about the portal before I move on? For that? That's a good question. I'm not just mark that 24 hours. Wow.
Yes, well, in the course I'm teaching now, advanced research, it's 24 hours. I don't know whether it's been on the but I encourage you to use that. I have students in the master's program that I know that it's going to be more attention. You know, water usage, and I know that will not get that really. So that's say use the time and then say use the sweat. We can look into that further and find out exactly from Dr. Strickland what needs to be done with that. So the next thing I just want to show you is you've been using chalk and wire. You started using chalk and wire. I've been working on this the last couple of weeks to bring it all up to speed. What we've done is identified a few additional assessments, and the reason that is for accreditation purposes. And we want to make sure that we maintain and always excel over our accreditation requirements. So one of the things that I've been doing is not only making sure that they're in here, they're linked and everything else. And each one of these is linked to program requirements, okay? Program outcomes. And that's important to know because you've worked with curriculum maps before in your settings. So there's an introduction, there's a practice, and there's mastery, or something along those lines, terminology-wise. But the idea is that there's multiple hits to the same skills or same outcomes. Okay, same thing in our DOT program. So what you do may either build or be foundational for something that you're going to do in a later course. Okay, and so everything is laid out. I've been working on that, and I want to show you too that we've now added the concept assessment and dissertation. And not that this is not where your final rubrics are going to be, but the rubrics here are going to be the key to tell those coming in and doing our visit that either you've not met the requirements or you've met the requirements. Your other rubrics, comp and defense, your IRB, and your final defense are all going to be going through Canvas. It'll be set up like a course, and you'll be working with your dissertation committee. They'll be your instructors in that course. Okay, so everything will be uploaded into that course shell. All right. So I wanted to give you a little bit of the infrastructure background first, so that you can kind of see how everything is working together. And now I'll actually run through the milestones. So we talked even this morning about and we truly are a faith-filled community, and I think that probably emulates out of everybody that you've met here on campus already, but that is who we are, and we're very proud of it, and that is what separates us from other universities down the road. I won't mention any names. So, and this is another thing that we've talked about this morning, so I won't go into depth here, but the Christian ethic of care and the 4 areas of self, diverse individuals, colleagues, and community. And this really does play a core to not only who we are, but also those program outcomes that I talked about. You'll see how they come back again later on in your comp assessment, and also in summer residency 3. Because part of this is being a community, and part of writing a dissertation is understanding that that's your contribution to the field. That's not yours to hold and just cuddle with because you worked so hard on it. But how are you going to disseminate that information? Okay, so we're going to talk about that too. So really, this is what we share with people when people ask us about, well, who's in your program? Well, the students in our program, it's really about impacting student achievement. And I'm trying to say, you're from different settings. We heard community college. There's a lot of K-12 teachers. There's K-12 administrators. We have nonprofits, we have churches, and so there's a lot of different groups that our students are in, and the idea is that we come together as a community in Christ. We've talked earlier too, you heard about Dr. Mack saying how the scholarly expertise plays in, and that is relevant. And hopefully you found that every assignment that you've done has been relevant to your own setting. Okay, that's a really important part of our program as well. So we have some resources that are available. I showed you the portal. That's one of the reasons I wanted to show it to you and not just tell you about it. But the portal is going to be a huge resource for you. You've done the orientation, but it's also available in the portal. Your Zoom sessions, that is something that separates us from other universities as well, is our weekly Zoom sessions. If you don't attend or if you can't attend, I highly, highly suggest that you go back and you look at the recordings, because a lot of times there's stuff said or discussed or whatever in those Zoom sessions that you're not going to get through the course discussion or that are an extension or further clarification. So it's really important that I just go back and take a peek at those. The other thing that we sometimes forget about is the instructors are more than willing to have a special Zoom session with you. That's part of who we are. We have built into our schedule Zoom session hours so that if you say, hey, you know what, I don't get this paper, usually we'll come back and we'll say, do you want to email, do you want to call, do you want to Zoom? Any of those are fine, okay? So don't be afraid to say to the instructor, can we just set up a Zoom because I'm better if I can just, talk to you, eye to eye and just ask you a few questions. Perfect, let's do it, okay? So don't be afraid to do that. And then you've been through an onboarding, so have all of the instructors in the program. We all go through an onboarding. You will be going through an IRB training, and that is something that we're setting up right now. And then you have your embedded librarian, Heather Gray, who was here earlier. You also have an embedded chaplain. Reverend Williams back there is our embedded chaplain. And there's also a place, and I know some of you have used it for prayer requests. And I think that you probably have found that your instructor is more than willing to bring that forward to the group and to have people pray with and for you. So again, that's a tool for you to use. I've talked about the assessments. I guess really, unless you have a question about assessments, I'll just move on. Any questions? So this is a slide that I think is very helpful because people ask me all the time, well, when do I get to, or when do we? And so this is actually for the summer group. This is for cohort 1. But for those of you in cohort 2, you would just slide it over one column. For those of you in cohort 3, you'd slide it over 2 columns. Okay. And I do have this too. If you're a visual person and you want me to send it to you through email, just throw me something. But this is not out there. Okay. This is just like my guide, so I know where you are. Okay. But I'd be more than happy to share it with you. So what you see is that you're going through your coursework. This is your first research course, or actually your second because you had research tools. But the first research course where you are doing your pilot. And cohort 1 just finished that right before they started in here. Your summer session, at completion of 24 credits, is when you'll be invited by me as the coordinator to put your dissertation committee together, okay? So after summer session's over and you kind of have an idea of what's happening with your fall courses, you're making that transition in, you'll be getting an email from me to go ahead and set up your group. So please don't contact people until later in the fall, okay? Following that, so during the fall, you'll be putting your committees together, and you'll be taking your 2 courses. And upon completion of your winter courses, of your fall courses, between 30 and 36 credits, that's when you'll be setting up to take your comps. Now, comps in most, because I know that there's 5 people on our admissions committee, and all 5 of us had the discussion about our experiences that we were put. I'll just tell you mine, but the other ones are very similar. I was put in a broom closet with a dot matrix printer, and had to do my comps, and it took me. I had like 6 hours to do them, and they were questions from each of my committee members. And there were questions that were focused on me demonstrating that I had the knowledge and skills that I needed for the degree I was going for. And so when in talking as a admissions group, we realized that was very similar. very similar experiences, is that we were answering questions, but there was, the learning had either taken place or it didn't, and, if they didn't like writing or something, they could have you redo, so it was very stressful. And we were like, and then you have to think about, this is great because we are doing curriculum and assessment, so we can do anything we want. We don't have to do a comp exam. It's about assessment, and assessment looks different ways you can do it. So we went and we decided that we were going to do a comp assessment, and that it was going to be a paper that cannot supplement or supplant your dissertation. It's going to be focused on something that you've come across in your coursework that's of interest to you. Okay? And that's the basis of your comp assessment. All right? So when you get to that point, between 30 and 36 credits, you'll have this additional paper, and one of the requirements is that it has to connect back to program outcome 2. And I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay? But that's one of the requirements of the comp exam. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Following that, this is kind of blocked out because during that time you'll be doing your comps, and you'll have your next 2 courses, and notice that you're going to have another research class with another extension of that pilot. Okay? So you'll be very busy. Okay? And then that summer, you can start working on your proposal. Okay? Once you pass your comps, you become a candidate. Okay? That's kind of an exciting transition. Once you pass your comps, you become a candidate. Right now, you're a student. All right? So all of your vocabulary will change in all of your interactions with people, because then you'll be a candidate. Your proposal, you can work on it here during the summer. Hopefully somewhere in here you'll be defending based on when you're ready, based on how you're working with your committee and how that's moving along. I'll tell you some things about your committee in a few minutes. And then notice that you cannot do the IRB until your proposal has been successfully defended. So that IRB is your key to be able to go out and start collecting data. You are not allowed to start collecting data until that IRB is approved. It's a legality. Okay. And however long it takes you to collect your data, analyze it, work with your committee, write your chapters 4 and 5, all of that wraps up into your final defense. And for group 1, it may be somewhere in fall or spring, or going into the summer. You may need longer than that. People ask me, well, I was told 3 years. 3 years is a foundation, it's a base. Just like any other program, you get 7 years. Okay? So if you're moving along and everything, we're not going to hold you back. But we also, and I think the first group can probably attest to this, because we keep saying, it's not a marathon. This is a journey. It's a process. Okay? You come in with an idea, and that's great. But you don't just jump on that idea and write a paper and you're done. So there's more to a dissertation than writing a paper. Okay? So we want to make sure that you're going through that full experience, because that's all part of the learning experience. That's how you become an expert in that area. Okay? And then summer session is down there, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. So, you know about the coursework, so it's up here. It's in your PowerPoint. But are there any questions about coursework? Yes, ma'am.
What is an IRB exactly?
I'm I'll let Dr. Schatzberger talk to you, because he was the chair of that task force.
We have a committee on this campus. It's the Research Ethics Committee. And it's their responsibility to review all research that involves human subjects, and B, that is sort of going beyond the university. Okay? The assumption is with your dissertation that it's going beyond the university. That may or may not be the case with the pilot study. So that's kind of more self-contained in Research 1 and 2. But this is a definite gateway. And universities held responsible by federal guidelines to have this process held out. And it's a fillable form. It's not daunting, you know. But you have to be able to, explain your research agenda in its entirety, exactly what you're going to be doing, including things like, for instance, questionnaires that you're going to be using, surveys, other kinds of instruments that you might be using, tests, et cetera, pretty much anything that would impact a human being is got to be up front with the committee. The committee then has up to 3 weeks to deliberate and give a stamp of approval or say this needs to be rewritten, whatever. And so we hope that that process will be, fairly quick, and that's not going to be the thing that you're just waiting on. So it's just, you can think of it as a hurdle, but it's a very necessary hurdle, and one that we really, we just can't get around. Does that help?
Yeah, there's that, we did that class on it, but it's the form that explains what we're going to be, okay.
So it's really it's an institutional review board that is not your instructors, it's other people from the institution that are saying it's ethical and it's not going to hurt anybody. That's the bottom line.
Not only does that protect the university, it protects you, that you don't do anything unethical, doing an experiment, not protecting them to the participants. Yeah, if it's something like a survey, sometimes that's considered exempt research, and so it's a very simple process. But if you're, I don't know, for instance, a participant observer in classrooms, that's way more involved. And so, it just depends. It depends on the kind of research you're doing.
All right, and course delivery, you're familiar with that. Any questions on that? Any comments? You know the courses that you're having to take, and that it's a lockstep program, so you just automatically keep moving to that next course. The summer residencies, we kind of touched on a little bit, but I just want to kind of show you. So right now the focus is on quantitative research and then academic writing. So the first 7 weeks are academic writing, second 7 are on quantitative. But next summer we're going to be focusing on lit review and qualitative. And I've already spoken with our library personnel, and it's not going to be on searches, because you're already having that. You had that in research tools, and you have sessions this time on searches. So it's really going to focus on credibility, on filtering, on primary resources, how to find them, how to use them. So that's what we mean by lit review. Also, another thing, and I'm sure my colleagues would attest to this, one of the best resources I ever learned to use were the references from books that I really liked. And then all of a sudden I started looking for, how they were using those resources, and then I started using those resources, and that really builds on your lit review as well. Okay, especially once you know your topic and you can start filtering that information. Dissertation 3 or summer residency 3 is what I talked about before, and that's dissemination of information. So it's not up to us to keep that information, but as part of that residency, you'll be required to do something with your information, whether it's grant writing or writing a proposal for a conference or a workshop, writing an article for a professional journal and submitting that. Now, whether or not it's approved or accepted, that's one thing, but at least doing it. Just like grant writing, everything is not going to be approved. You're not going to get everything. But the idea is that we want you, while you're still in this program, to look at what's out there and to feel confident enough to take your research, and guess what? There's another way of having to write. If you're writing a grant, it's different than writing your dissertation. If you're publishing a book, it's different than writing a dissertation. Articles are different. And so it's really looking at what you have now and how can I transform this into something that's usable with my colleagues out in the field. So that's what summer session 3 will be on. And also the opportunity, perhaps, for those of you ready, to set up a time to defend with your committee. Okay? So you can keep that as a goal too. All right? So those are the summer sessions, summer residencies. Any questions about that? So we have 5 milestones. We've been talking about them. I'm going to kind of go through them quickly unless there's questions, but the coursework comp assessment, your proposal defense, your IRB, and then your final defense. Okay. A lot of information up here, but it's basically what I've been saying about the comp assessment and what it is, what it looks like, and the learning outcome 2 plus 2 additional learning outcomes have to be evident in your final comp assessment. Okay. Your dissertation committee is formed after 24 credits. You have 3, and they work with you the rest of the time. Basically, they work with you through your comp and through the other through 4 milestones. They work with you. I want you to think about this. I want you to start thinking about what questions you might want to ask potential dissertation committee members, because this afternoon, when you have an opportunity to actually talk with them, and from my understanding, most of them are going to be available to you. So when you go into that profile, look to see what their areas are, because that's how you're going to align who your member is, what their role is, and then what your topic is. Okay? Your reader is really your content expert. That's the person that you want to be able to ask you the tough questions. Is that already out there? Well, this is already out there, so how would your study be different? What other resources might you be interested in using? If you like this author, have you tried this author? They are not your editor. Your reader is not your editor. They can help you revise. All of your committee members can help you revise your paper, and there's a difference between editing and revising. But they are not your editor. Okay? So they are your content expert. Your methodologist is the person that will help you. They'll listen to you with your ideas about your design, and they will help you to make sure it's feasible, that it's ethical, that it's going to do what you, or they might not tell you exactly if it's going to do what you want it to do, because that might be a finding, right? You might find limitations in your study. It's not up to your methodologist to tell you that that's going to happen, but they can help you with the design from the very beginning to get the best results that you can get. So again, it's important to make sure that your methodologist is part of your discussion right away at the beginning, okay, before you get too far into your thoughts about what your study is going to do. Your chair is I'm going to say your chair is your most important person, okay, because that person is the driver. That person is going to work directly with you and make sure that you are progressing. Make sure that you are, at this stage of the game, there aren't deadlines, are not set deadlines, and it gets pretty easy for some people to kind of, oh my gosh, another semester went past and I don't have anything to turn in. So your chair is most likely and should be connecting with you multiple times, even throughout a semester, even if you're not submitting anything to them, because they want to make sure that you're progressing. What do you need? Okay? And if you're saying, I don't know, that's okay too, because sometimes we don't know what we need, right? But it's up to the chair to work with you. I can give you a specific example. I'm working with a young lady right now. I've probably been working with her, I was trying to think about this over the weekend, I think maybe 3 years. Okay? She was working with a different chair. She didn't feel like she was progressing, and she requested me. And she's not progressing, but on paper. Now, does that make sense? Because she hasn't gotten it written down, but I know it's in her head. And we've had enough conversations that I know that she's progressing and she's doing stuff from conversation to conversation. Now, in there too, she had some family things take place. She went through a bad divorce and she moved from Atlanta to Chicago. And so there's things that happen in life. You have to allow yourself time to heal, but then you have to get back up on the horse. And that's what a chair does. Okay? I gave her time to grieve. I gave her time to settle. And then I told her, I need something. You need to set a date with me. And then I need to see something. So I just talked to her this last week, and she said, Dr. Strike, she goes, you know I love you. She said, because you make it so that I have to get things done. And I know that you're going to call me on that date, and I know you're going to check in, and I know I'm going to have to answer to you. So she's not final defended yet. She's not even proposal decided yet. But we have a timeline, and we've been working together this whole time, and she's been progressing. Okay? Now, it doesn't always work that way. One of the young ladies that you're going to meet on Wednesday is also a student that I chair. She's now Dr. Trinlios, and she finished very quickly. And she had to go through the Department of Defense. So she had not only our IRB, but she also was working with the government. So she had another whole set of issues. And I'm hoping that she'll talk to you about that. Okay? But she finished, I'll say within a year. Okay? So it depends, thank you. It depends on you, your research, your data collection, your analysis, the support of your family, the support of your committee. It's all intertwined. So when people say, how fast can I be done, that's on, there's too many variables for me to tell you how fast that can be done. All right? Any questions about that?
Yes, ma'am. Quick question. So the reader should be someone that's very familiar and kind of like an expert with your content.
Right.
But the chair, are you looking for someone that's kind of like a well-rounded version of a reader and a methodologist all in one for that chair? Because I went through some of the profiles and I was looking at some of the people that were and just trying to get, an idea of maybe what some of their backgrounds were in. And so now I'm sitting here thinking, well, should I think about that person for a reader instead of a chair?
And that's a great thing that you need to feel out when you're talking to the people and when you're asking your questions. Because a chair, I'll say a chair is kind of like a superintendent in a school district. A superintendent surrounds themselves with great people because there's no way that you can know everything about everything, right? But is that superintendent getting things done will that superintendent lead you from ABD to final defense? So you want to make sure that you are connecting with that person, that you feel comfortable talking with that person, and that, you know, like I just served on 2 special ed committees, you know, and I'm not a special ed person, but, you know, it's working out great, you know what I mean? So you just have to find, for the chair, you really want to find that person who you're comfortable with, that you think would be a good fit for you to drive you. Yep. Question?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to be clear, the comp topic for your paper is a completely different topic than your dissertation.
Correct. It cannot supplement or supplant.
And the dissertation committee will do the same for your comp as your dissertation. Yes.
So don't worry about choosing your dissertation committee for your comps. Don't worry about that part of it, because there's a rubric for the comps, and the comps is really a paper.
Right.
Your
But
dissertation is
your
not.
dissertation committee, again, looking at the area of focus, it might be something completely different than what your comp topic is.
Don't worry about that.
And
Focus on
then
your
when you
dissertation.
say work with students for the comp, are they the 3 that will be looking at the paper?
Yes.
For your comp?
They'll be evaluating it. Yep. And there's a ballot that goes out for each thing. So the comp has a ballot, your defense has a ballot, your final defense has a ballot. Did I see a hand up on this side?
I remember that's kind of a statement, I guess. When you were looking at the top and wire, and I went ahead and logged into mine, it's telling me that mine has expired as of 6/15/19.
Yeah.
And yeah, that might be the case for other people. Do we need to do something for that?
Rhonda does.
Who does?
Rhonda,
Rhonda? Okay.
we can have Rhonda visit tomorrow morning, and in between, you can check whether that's the case for you, and you can tell her yours is expired, or you can just on track.
Rhonda Wood? Who's the?
Yeah, there's a Rhonda track. Sorry. Rhonda Wood, and she would be director, and you can just tell her that it's expired.
It's a button on her end. And so then just moving forward, everything that you do is connected to SWU and the School of Ed. So in the PowerPoint, there are connections for you. We also did this for accreditation. If you hadn't heard, we've received 3 commendations and no recommendations for this program. So we're very proud of it. But just know that that first, that proposal defense is chapters 1 through 3. Then you do your IRB, the research and everything, and then you'll write 4 and 5. Okay. So, any questions?
Back to Rachel's question about smart thinking.
Yes.
Other than to course, campus, and other modules, there's resources and taking discussions, smart thinking, program, and we have automatically often. To see if that's true.
Okay. So I'll set that up here so like a mobile. Put your hand with boards. That's smart thinking. Any other questions?
Maybe this is a I kind of don't really know what I want to do for my topic yet, so how would I go about picking my committee members?
Right, and you're not, so that's a great question, because cohort 1 is ready to start rocking and rolling and asking, like interviewing their people. But cohort two, you're kind of on that verge. You kind of might have some ideas and whatnot, but just think of it this way, that this is not the only opportunity that you're going to have to talk to these committee members. Today is an initial meeting, an initial meet and greet. Those who are ready to start asking those tough questions will have the opportunity. The rest of you might want to just kind of sit back and listen. And if somebody kind of sparks your interest, jot their name down. And then that way you know you have the profiles, you can go back and you can either take notes on that or just write it in our notes and go back to it later. But you'll have What's next? We're like the married couple here on campus. Working together so much and everything, So, I can take So, there should not, or will not, I'll say will not, but I've seen it happen once in all my years. They should not be bringing you to defense unless you're ready. So when you get to that defense, first of all, I'm going to say, I know it's really intimidating, but it's really a matter of you orally defending or orally stating all the work that you've done. That's all you're doing. You'll have a PowerPoint to guide you. They have an opportunity to ask questions. Now, in the proposal, they still might massage what it is that you're proposing. Okay? They still might have some recommendations for you to change some things up, and then you get a few weeks to turn your paper back in. You pass with revision. That means you don't have to go back to full committee meeting and a Zoom session. You'll be working with your chair. You'll get it together and make the revisions that move forward. Okay? Kind of the same thing in the final defense, but your final defense should be a final defense. If there's any revisions, it's probably going to be more format or mechanical than it would be content, because you're reporting. One thing to remember, and this is an issue with the young man that just defended last Monday, is I'm his reader for him, and he has not changed any of his first 3 chapters to past tense. those first 3 chapters, when you do them initially, you're saying, this is what I'm going to do. When you've done it, you have to change that whole first proposal into past tense, okay? And so that's what's holding him up on his paper. Something as simple as that, okay? The content's great. He's done his research, all right? Now here's the great part, is that when you go into your final defense, and your committee will go off into a breakout session and discuss what you presented, when they come back, 99.9% of the time, they acknowledge your new title.
Even if there are some edits,
Mhm.
you know, they'll say, congratulations.
And then you get to use your title from then on. Even if there's revisions, you get to use your title from then on.
And even if you have a graduate.
Right. Graduation is a formality, and it's our chance to hood you.
Which is,
It's a big deal, though. I mean,
that's one of the,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
one of the most special things to me about that kind of graduation is, and maybe most all of you, I don't know, with your masters, you didn't get hooded, you put it on yourself. That thing of somebody putting it on you, that's a very good deal. But I just to say a nuts and bolts part of that question, let's say you did that in the summer. We're not Clemson, you know, so we don't have an August graduation. So it would be December.
You're going to make me wait till December.
Absolutely. And likewise, you know, anytime after December, or even probably November, would be May. Okay. Just to be clear.
But as far as like on paper and like title and everything,
Oh,
that part is taken care of.
I'm talking about getting paid.
No, I'm not. I just really
Oh,
want to.
well, now that's a separate thing, okay?
Yeah.
We did this for master's students. We would definitely do this for doctoral students. The dean can send out a letter and saying, look, you know, all requirements have been completed. They won't graduate until December, but all requirements are completed. And so that's enough for the state. You know, that's enough for the district. Yeah.
But I just want to piggyback on that because we talked about community. And, you know, I'm just going to say it, academia is a club. And I've shared this story with a couple of you, but when I first went to go do my research, and I was like very naive, and I called my first person, and I'm like, hey, you know, and, you know, thought they would all be happy and stuff. I still remember the first gentleman I called said that he didn't want to work with me, and when I asked why, he didn't even know. He said, well, if you want to run with the big dogs, you got to raise your leg high. You need something from me, but I need something from you. I mean, I was brand new. I didn't have, what do I have to offer? So I still remember that, and I still wanted to send him a picture of my diploma when I was 10. But I will say that by putting, one of the things that happens, at least in my background, and it's something small but big, is that right now we're Dr. Schatzberger and Dr. Strike, and when you get emails from us later, it's from Kimberly and Paul. Okay, that's part of the culture. Okay, so just a little tidbit.
One thing.
Yeah.
You talked about the final defense. One of the things that you have to keep in mind that when you've done the study, you are the expert. Nobody knows more about the study that you have completed or the paper that you have written than you do. And that includes the people on your committee. So it's I don't want to say it shouldn't be intimidating. It should be very rewarding. It's something that you have accomplished.
And I've learned something from every dissertation I've sat on because it's original. So that's one of the reasons I love serving the dissertation.